Zycus. Zycus have been running a worldwide tour discussing their agentic AI-powered solutions and platforms to really supercharge processes and outcomes. And right now, charging ahead with Zycus, Bolt's procurement vision and journey. So it's a real pleasure to welcome onto the stage this three-way chat from Zycus, Rozalyn Orme and Varoon Kukreja, and from Bolt's, John Mahjoubi. And I'll let you introduce yourselves a little bit more than that, and I'll hand it over to you for the next 20 minutes. Thank you all.
Thank you for that. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure being here, welcoming you to this session at Procurement Live London. So quite exciting today. We're joined by a leader whose company is actually reshaping how the world moves. Bolt, headquartered in Estonia, now operates in, tell me if I'm wrong, 600 cities across 50 countries, spanning ride-hailing, scooters, car sharing, food and grocery delivery. I know I'm one of your customers, actually. Earlier this year, Bolt announced its partnership with Zycus to accelerate its global procurement transformation. And that partnership was anchored in a shared vision: intelligent, scalable, user-friendly procurement that keeps pace with a hyper-growth business. Today, we'll hear directly from the person driving that journey. Please welcome John Mahjoubi, Chief Procurement Officer at Bolt. John, it's great to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
So, John, let's start right at the beginning. Bolt has been, as I've just said, scaling at an extraordinary pace, and with that growth comes complexity, obviously. What were some of the procurement challenges that convinced you and your team it was time for a transformation, if you don't mind?
Sure. I wouldn't call it procurement challenges. It went just a bit beyond procurement. Bolt, the way it grew over a span of around about 10 years, it went from just a few people to more than between 3,000 to 4,000 people, operating in one or two markets up to 50, 60 across multiple business lines, which sort of from complexity point of view, it exploded. When you got companies like this that are growing at that pace, I think the priority is in the back office, is enabling the front office, go out there, win, conquer, and come back. That's basically the assignment for the business. And what happens along the way, in majority of the cases, I wouldn't say all of them, if you're in regulated industries, you cannot do that, but companies like Bolt, we sort of overlook the back end, the back office operations and everything that goes with that. So when I landed in the job, procurement function didn't really exist in a conventional format of a procurement function, where you have a sort of well-defined, let's say, value proposition, business understands what procurement does, and everything that goes with that sort of conventional approach to procurement, technology, people, structure, policy, procedure, all of those stuff. We had some stuff that were sort of the consequence or the reaction of the business to the requirements as the business grew, but it was scattered, sort of broken into chunks, and we weren't in a good space around about 18 months ago. So the management decided, okay, time to sort of transform and make a change. So challenges were numerous from the point of, put it this way, when you start talking to companies like Zycus, the basic assumption is that you do raise POs. You place orders through a purchase order. We don't place POs at all. Invoices come in, we pay. Or supplier onboarding, there's always a process behind it, sourcing this, that, which really didn't exist, and led to frustration, led to delays, led to a long list of stuff. So the management said, sort of, enough is enough, it's the right time to go in and sort of make a change.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing there is the challenge is not just around managing spend, it's a much bigger piece than that, right? It's scaling procurement to match all of those different pieces that you mentioned there, and also just at least even matching that to the pace of the global business model that you had and the growth that you experienced. So there's a lot of challenges there. I guess what's interesting for the audience potentially is every journey, all of those problems that you're seeing there have a tipping point. So what was the day, what was the realization, what occurred when you and your leadership team said, right, we've got to transform this now, not later? What was the driver behind that?
I wasn't there when that happened.
Okay, the wrong question.
Yep. So business knew that something needs to change. We grew to a size and complexity that they couldn't continue down the same path. So they knew they needed to bring in somebody to sort of build that vision, build that approach. And that's when I came in. I came in with my usual sort of prescription. I go in, I'm going to change this, that, and things will fall in place. I was so wrong with that, to be honest with you. It didn't really go according to plan. And why? Because, again, startups, this kind of hyper-growth companies, conventional approach never sort of applies, never goes far. So we went in and started looking at what areas are there that I can tackle first, short term, to make an impact, and what do you look at usually? People, again, policy, procedures, and technology. What was easier to do was people. Reshuffling the team, making it work somehow, so we did a lot of work in that space. Policy, procedures, within the first few weeks I realized this is not a company, you change the policy, things happen. You need to enable policy and procedures. And that's where the whole conversation around technology came in. And we started sort of exploring different options, sort of expanding on the technology that we had at the time or doing it something new. And then the whole process that we went through to say to the management, look, we want to be the enabler. You guys are out there to conquer, to win, to expand. We don't want to come in and become a blocker, but we want to have sort of a certain identity and certain value proposition to the business. And that's what I put forward to the management, and that's sort of collectively we agreed, go and build a system that does what it needs to do, but business doesn't really feel it.
Yeah, I think that's a real stepping point actually. Instead of stretching the old model further, you took a decision to really change things, which is a bold step. It's not a step that most or a lot of organizations take. They work with what they have. And you took a bold step to reimagine procurement around all of those things that you talked about. So I imagine intelligence, speed, agility, people. That's a bold step to take. And how did that sort of, did that go well? Were you received well on that? What was the sort of feelings around that at the time?
Honest answer is initially it was doubt, because everything we've done before to make a change, and I wasn't there necessarily to drive it, but didn't lead to efficiencies, didn't lead to sort of better user experience, didn't remove bottlenecks, didn't really work. So the vision that we sort of put together for them, well done, very good, but we have a long list of red flags and concerns that we need to tackle. And that's where sort of everything evolved into, for me to be able to make this a success, I think the building block is a good technology. And not, again, I use the word conventional in so many different occasions, but reality is we needed a technology that is not conventional, that is not sort of the usual thing. Mm-hmm. And that's when, to some extent, where Zycus came in. Initially, we went to market to buy a full-on source-to-pay system to fix the back end. But then the whole conversation around intake and how actually the business interact with the technology came up as well, and then it sort of took us in a different direction altogether. Yeah,
thank you. That's interesting. Varoon, if I just bring you in on this point, I mean, obviously we speak to lots of different customers. That decision to sort of transform in that way and not patch up potentially incumbent solutions that you have, we speak to a number of clients in this way, don't we, in terms of being visionary and changing not just the problems but being transformative. Do you have anything you'd just like to enlighten when you talk about Bolt as a business, but also some other clients that we have?
No, absolutely, and thank you, Rose, for bringing me in. I think a lot of times when the clients look at something like a newer technology, the most, I would say, immediate thought is that, okay, let's bolt something on to the existing technology or existing backbone. But what's important to also understand is that from a long run, the maintenance that can actually come in because of that might just take the value away. Yeah. So yes, it's going to be maybe more difficult to make that hard decision in the beginning itself, but you're going to reap the benefits in the long run as well. And I think that's exactly where John's vision also came in. They could have easily looked at the current systems and just thought, okay, let's do some patchwork, because Let's be honest, the market is quite commoditized. There's plenty available out there to bolt on and do some patchwork and look at that canvas. But that bold step is absolutely something that's going to reap much more value out of first of all the strong backbone of the source to pay, but also how stuff like intake manager talks to that source to pay process. Data is important. Data is still residing at the back end, and even though we talk about that augmented generative intelligence, it's still going to make that reference to the backbone. And yes, of course, overall you are still kind of improvising on the overall user experience with something like intake, still getting the power from a source to pay as well. And kudos to, I think, John and team, where they actually made that bold step, and they're right in the middle of it right there.
That's good to hear. And John, I'll just circle back round to you. Obviously, you partnered with Zycus, but I'll ask the question, obviously. How and why did you choose Zycus as the right partner? So, one, why did you choose Zycus? But also, what were the non-negotiables when you were looking for a partner to conduct this?
Please don't get upset. Zycus wasn't the first choice when we started. But then the requirements, the approach from different vendors, and what Zycus brought to the table, and commerciality on top of it, made them the sort of no-brainer option for us at that point in time. Couple of things we were looking at that for me was massive in the decision making. One was, we all know what Coupa is, how does it work? Everybody's familiar with it. From my perspective, it was a bit heavy for the type of organization that we have. So user experience and having sort of simplified user journeys were critical for me. An organization that does have that vision, that things can change, things can evolve, and Zycus sort of, from a day one with the whole Merlin conversation, hit the nail on the head. I have to say there's a lot of hype around AI and what it can do and what the future looks like, as we all know. And Zycus wasn't sort of different. They had a vision. Some of the parts were there, some weren't. But again, it was much more comprehensive, holistic compared to the rest. And two, even more critical for me than actual technology itself was who were we going to partner with. Reason being, Bolt is not, again, a normal company. In terms of maturity of the processes, the type of resources that we attract and hire is not, again, the norm. It's quite different. So the average age is quite lower than usual, different generation altogether, and how you can build a system and run it requires different sort of solutions. And what I was looking for is how Zycus comes into the demos, to the workshops, and trying to sell a solution to us. And I think that was, for me, one of the biggest differentiators, that Varoon was part of that process the whole way, and the fact that they understood that we have certain challenges. The razor PO is not always the answer, right? And how we can overcome that and come up with a different solution. So yeah, that aspect of partnership and people I was dealing with was as important for me as the solution itself. And then finally, again, one sort of value proposition that our other, I think, vendors are catching up, but Zycus had at that point in time, I needed a sort of state-of-the-art intake solution on top of the source to pay. And Zycus did have that at that point in time.
That's interesting, because that, you go through these processes, or often companies do, and the decision around transformation looks at technology features, and you've demonstrated here that actually it isn't just about the technology features that you're looking at. It's around finding a partner who can build a bigger vision, looking forward as to where procurement is actually headed and where that aligns with your business, right?
Sure.
So, looking forward, procurement is evolving faster than ever. I think we know that, especially with AI. It's a hot topic, and automation changing the landscape. And obviously, you've embarked on this journey with Zycus. So, how do you see? Big question here, but how do you see the procurement landscape at Bolt 5 years from now? Let's say.
Very difficult question to answer,
is.
to be honest. We have to take it one step at a time. Let's roll out this system and see how the organization attitude and approach changes toward procurement. So that's the point one for me. So bit difficult to foresee 5 years. But at the core of it, I think we need to be part of the ecosystem, not a latch-on, which in organizations like us, procurement is a latch-on in reality. You can use it if you want to. If you don't want to, you can avoid it. So I want to be core component of that. Two, I want to try to get rid of, we have a saying in a company which I will try to eliminate at some point, we can negotiate better than you. And with all the capabilities that we're building, from technology perspective, category management perspective, better people to change that as well. And then be at the forefront of sort of modern technology across the business as well. If you look at it, both in general, we do have quite a decent technology stack. But is it future-proof? Not yet. So we have, like any other company, massive sort of task forces, projects to look at AI and how it can help the company. I want my function in procurement to be right at the forefront of that and future ready, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I'm hearing when you talk about that, and I can hear the passion when you're talking around it. It's around autonomous agents, managing the tail spend, being more proactive rather than reactive, and really orchestrating that business value and looking at it from a completely different perspective, which is absolutely very different to when you're just looking at functionality, right? You're looking at the bigger picture around things, intake, and really looking to create that business value creation. So we're very glad you partnered with us, and hopefully we'll take you on that next 5-year journey. Varoon, I will, because pass this over to you. Are we seeing a lot more of that when we're speaking to clients, where we're able to say to them, look, what's your utopia? Where do you want to be, rather than looking to fix a specific problem right now?
Absolutely. And this is something we at Zycus also talk about. I mean, if you ask our CEO, he's going to say that the world has become so dynamic. Everything has become, with the timeline perspective, it's shrunken. For example, we used to talk about a new UI to the tool every 5-6 years, maybe 7, right? Now is a situation where we are talking about a new user interface, perhaps every year. And that's kind of same for every business, every department, and it's no different for procurement as well, right? So I was already thinking when you asked John the question that, where do you see the procurement for Bolt going in 5 years? We don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. We are not sure, how it's going to change in the next 1.5, 2 years. So it's very important to look at this pragmatically. It's very important to look at, where are those low-hanging fruits in terms of value?
Yep.
And even, if it means go in with an MVP and then build on it, that becomes a, more self-funded way of, approaching such projects. And yes, functionality is still going to be, if you talk about very specific functions or, features, etc., they're still going to be at the core of it. But it's very important to take a step back and look at that larger picture on, are you actually getting the value out of the core effort that you're putting in or not?
So I love that, because what you're talking around is not just adapting to the future. Both of you have mentioned there, you're actively shaping it, aren't you? You don't know what that looks like right now, but you are actively going to be shaping that as you move forward on your journey. So John, thank you for sharing Bolt's vision and joining us today on the stage. So I think we can all agree that the transformation you've experienced and gone through is not just about tools, it's around the leadership, the vision. We don't know what the future holds, but we'll actively be shaping it as we move forward and leading the procurement function ready for the future. I guess I'll open it to the audience. We have maybe a little bit of time left, but if you could all please join me in just thanking John Mahjoubi for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we have time for a couple of questions?
We probably don't, but is there a question that's burning that we can take? I know certainly Zycus, you have a stand in the networking area.
We do.
So if there's any questions
Please
that
join us.
come up afterwards to find out what Zycus can do for you or whatever, then I'm sure you guys can sort that out then.
We can. Thank you very much for everyone's time.
Rozalyn, Varoon, John, thank you very much.
Thank you.